is the PDS system. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Alright, this is just a little overview of the PDS system, some tips and tricks that may help you in running the PDS. This is your main screen for the PDS system. You can always tell what tolerances it's set for by what's highlighted in the screen. So if it says coded in the screen, that's the tolerances in this side tab that you're actually shooting for. So if you need to change that, you can change it here to whatever type of paper you're running. It'll retag it over here. You just change to MAC coding instead of coding. So now it's going to tag everything to that. Determining whether a scan is good or bad is a trick. You need to be able to look at the scan and see, I see this one is all, the black is below the black line in red, which means that it's going to be below standard. So if I want to see whether that's an accurate scan or not, first thing I'm going to do is select that color. This gives me the difference from our target value. If I select actual, it's going to give me the actual density per key. So I can actually select a key, one of the numbered keys on the sheet, do a spot reading with my scanner, determine whether it's an actual accurate reading or not, or a false scan. So if it's a false scan, and we're going to rescan the sheet, move the head, or do whatever we need to do to get a more accurate scan. Because of the lighting and etc. in this particular location, the scanner works more consistently if we start on a color patch. So in your actual settings screen, where you determine which color patch you're starting to read from, you're going to start with the scanning spot on the first color, so your actual read color will be the very next patch. So when you go to set up your color bar, you're not going to determine it to be the gray patch where you're lining up the scanner. It will be the black patch or the blue patch or whatever color is immediately after it. That's what's going to go in here. That way when the scanner head moves across the sheet, it has an encoder on the wheel on the scanner that measures, so it knows which patch is which based on where you told it to start reading from. Scan on this gray patch once, and then scan on this gray patch the next time and get the same reading. Because it'll measure the sheet and give you a false reading. It'll adjust keys in the wrong position. So you have to make sure you're consistent in everything that you do. Now, as far as, so we've determined that that's a good scan. Now we notice that our black is way below tolerance, so it's because it's all red. So the first thing you're going to do is determine whether that's an accurate scan, which I just showed you how to do that by going in here to the actual. Now we determine that it's a good scan. We want to bring the ink up faster, for black especially. And also we need to bring it up into yellow. As you can see, the yellow is below standard also. So when we hit feedback and select the units that we're going to feed back to, it's a smart idea just to feedback to all of them, just because it's not going to change anything on the ones that are already within spec. It's only going to change your keys that are out of spec into red. At this particular point, we could hit the OK button, and it's going to feed back to the console and adjust the keys automatically. The way the console operates is to open the keys beyond the actual set point to give it an extra charge of ink, and then settle back into the actual number to reach our target density. The way that you can help that while the press is running is to come over to your ductor control pad, which will all be in automatic mode while the press is running. So all I'm going to do is go to the flood button for the ink ductor on black, which is in unit 2, and 5, which is yellow. And I'm going to hold that flood button down to give it a little extra ink to help it come up quicker so that I don't burn through so many sheets to get to where I'm trying to go. I'm just helping the PDS system achieve its goal a little quicker. Much like you would in a standard press without automation. By goosing the ductor ball or opening the fountain slightly to allow more ink in, just to give yourself a little extra charge. settle into their actual number to achieve target density. You can do the same thing with that process by going to your keypad again, this time shutting off the ductor for 5 and 2, which would be our yellow and our black. Maybe do a 10 count, whatever works for you as far as that goes, depending on how fast the press is running, obviously. Do a 1-1000, 2-1000, whatever. Turn the ductors back on. So all I'm doing is helping the press come up to color a little quicker. A couple little tips and tricks that'll help you achieve, you know, a more consistent color and a more consistent flow when using the PDS. Now, the nice thing about the PDS is you get a color proof and you like the color, but the scans look like this. So obviously you don't want to keep trying to replicate what's in this screen by eye. So what you're going to do is you're going to select it as an OK sheet. Because you like this color even though they're low in density in 2 of the colors, but that's the color that you want, or the customer wants, or clears all our standards. Now the next sheet that we scan is going to match that original sheet. So this way we're avoiding color fluctuation throughout the run by making the press try to hit the tolerances that are there. We're actually going by the sheet that we like. So now we're tagging all of our densities to that particular sheet. Now after the run we can obviously delete that so that the press will go back to shooting for the tolerances on the next job. So that's just a little bit of tips and tricks. The other thing to always remember is to calibrate to paper white before you start your runs. So put the scanner head onto the actual white area of the paper, hold the button down until it finishes its calibration to the paper. It'll beep at you. Now you have the whiteness of that paper calibrated in so it will reflect in your density settings. And that's about it. Okay, some of the problems with setting up the scanner so that it's consistent and reads consistently every time. Area which is recommended typically for most situations. We have a high rate of bad scans. I think what it is a reflection of light off of the white paper is too great and it's causing a bad scan occasionally. So if we start on the dark color, the first dark patch, full dark patch, and set our actual starting read point to be the following patch, from that we seem to get a pretty consistent flow of scans with very few bad ones. The other real big issue with this is control. Obviously it takes time to get a little bit of dexterity to be able to scan the sheet at exactly the same speed. And typically you always want to have your hand on the actual scanning head to keep it flush to the paper and to keep the encoder wheel turning at the correct speed going across the sheet so it's not skipping or dragging across the sheet. The other big issue is sometimes you'll notice as you're doing a scan that you may accidentally lift up on the head a little bit. You'll actually see the reflection of the scanning light on the sheet. You already know that's going to be a bad scan. Just stop and start over. Because now you've introduced outside light refraction from fluorescence in the room, in the atmosphere, to affect your scan. So the actual positioning of the scan aperture is also another critical point. They typically say that they want it to be even with the bar. I found that even if you're a little bit higher on the color bar, so that if you look in the actual window, you can almost see a sliver of white at the top of the window here next to the aperture. And what that does is you're able to watch as you scan across the sheet and make sure that you're not pulling down on the head or pushing up on the head as you're scanning. You can kind of get a feel for as you're doing your movement, you can actually see it and keep it straight. And that's going to give you your highest rate of good scans and the least chance of a bad scan. Try to keep your track waxed and clean for the scanner head to slide on so that it slides freely with no tight spots or hitches so that it hesitates as you're scanning and causes a bad scan.